Slight puffs of smoke in the mornings, a little bit of an oil burning smell, gas mileage that seems like it's worse than it should be, caked up, kind of gunky, milky looking residue under your oil cap. And so you might notice some oil loss between oil changes. It can be replaced in under 20 minutes with basic hand tools, and I'll show you how. If you've got an LX570 from 2008 all the way up to 2021, if you have a Toyota Tundra with the 5.7 liter V8, if you have a Toyota Sequoia with a 5.7 liter V8, or if you have a Toyota Land Cruiser from 2008 all the way up to 2021 with the 5.7 liter V8, this video applies specifically to you. If you have a vehicle outside of those, this is still a valid video to watch to understand why a common issue is overlooked and misdiagnosed a lot of the time. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be going over a simple maintenance item that most people don't do, dealerships don't do, and even technicians don't catch until it causes other problems, and it's such an easy fix. What common issue is that? If you've ever had slight puffs of smoke in the mornings after your car has been sitting for a while, or after it's been sitting for a few days and you started, a little bit of a smoke puff coming out the back, a little bit of an oil burning smell. If you step on the gas and you've got a little bit of smoke coming out the back, or you start smelling some of that crude oil burning smell. If you've got a little bit of oil seepage, tiny bits that come and go that you can't necessarily pinpoint the cause of. If you've got gas mileage that seems like it's worse than it should be, or if you've got caked up, kind of gunky, milky looking residue under your oil cap, this is the video to watch. Not 100% guarantee that this is your issue, but I bet you there's probably a good 80% chance that this will fix your problem. Now, there's a very important part on an engine, any gasoline engine, 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder, 8-cylinder, whatever size engine it is. This part is called a PCV valve, positive crankcase ventilation valve. PCV valve is a one-way valve that has a spring and a ball or some kind of stopper inside of it. Under certain amounts of pressure, it opens and lets pressure through. Under certain amounts of pressure or vacuum, it stays shut and does not allow air to pass through it. Depending on the engine, a PCV valve may sit in different spots. Typically, it's somewhere around the valve cover or on the valve cover, and it connects with one hose or a series of hoses over to the intake manifold or the intake pipe or right past the throttle body. On these 5.7 liter V8s that are used in the full-size SUVs and trucks from Toyota and Lexus, the PCV valve is easily accessible. It takes maybe 10 to 20 minutes at most to replace it, and I've seen them become non-functional and not let any air through in as little as 30,000 miles. But most people never get them replaced. Even up past 100,000 miles, 130 or 40,000 miles, I've seen PCV valves that are completely original. Having a non-functional PCV valve leads to increased pressure inside the crankcase, and that could cause oil leaks prematurely. It could cause oil to get past the piston rings and into the combustion chamber and be burnt off. So you might notice some oil loss between oil changes. You might notice the oil light coming on between oil changes and having to add oil. You may notice puffs of smoke after the car has been sitting for a while. You may notice puffs of smoke when you hit the accelerator pedal and try to accelerate abruptly. You may even notice increased gas consumption and lower miles per gallon. Everybody's got their own preference. For me personally, it's on my list of things to do every 36,000 miles on any of the vehicles we own if we keep them that long. Also, on any vehicle that I purchase that has more than 30,000 miles, I really don't know if the previous owner has done it or if the dealership has done it. Typically, they have not. And one of the first things I do as part of my baseline maintenance is to replace the PCV valve. Here is an OEM Toyota replacement PCV valve. You're going to have two different variations of these for the most part, depending on if you have a Tundra Sequoia with the flex fuel system or a Land Cruiser or LX570. The part number is different by 1 digit. They are interchangeable as far as fit, and they look basically identical, but they're slightly different in the spring rate that's used inside. I'll put both part numbers along with links to purchase them in the description of the video. If you want to purchase them from the links, you can. If you want to use the part number and go to your local dealership, you can do that as well. There it is outside of the packaging. I'm going to shake it and you can hear the ball move inside. If you've never been under the hood, don't be too intimidated. A lot of these are just plastic covers, easy to take off. I'm going to show you step by step exactly where this thing is, so even if you're a first timer, you can do this very easily. Some mechanic shops and some dealers look at this as a much more expensive job than it is, quoting upwards of $900 or $1,000 in labor because they're telling you that the intake manifold has to come off in order to replace the PCV valve. I can guarantee you 100% that is not the case. It can be replaced in under 20 minutes with basic hand tools, and I'll show you how. Now, I'm not going to use any fancy tools, just so that I'm using the most basic of tools so that you can do the same. Depending on whether you have a Sequoia, a Tundra, a Land Cruiser, an LX570, and also what year you have, these plastic pieces may look different. The engine components and what I show you there will look the same, but these plastic pieces may look different. There may be one long one, like on this 2017 LX570, on the 2008 through 2015 LX570 and Land Cruisers. There's actually 3 sections. There's an outside, a middle, and a side section. And then on the Tundras and Sequoias, they look slightly different as well. If you do have any of these plastic pieces in place, they're very easy to remove. There's a bunch of these little clips that look like this. And if you haven't messed with these before, the way you pull them out is push the middle in, just like that. Put your little flat head underneath there, like so, and pull upwards. Take them out, put them aside, because you're gonna need them once you're ready to put the plastic covers back on. Let me get all those off. We'll pull this plastic cover off and then get to that section. Plastic cover is off, as you can see. I've got it set aside on the ground, and I put the clips right there on the cover so that I don't lose them. Next thing you want to do is remove this engine cover if your vehicle does have one. They may look different than this, but they're very easy to take off. It just pops off. Gently pull up on the front, on the sides, and it should come off. Don't drag it because there is sound insulating material on the bottom if you do have one of these engine covers. It's not just for looks. It also has a ton of the sound insulating material, and it helps keep things quiet and keep the engine noises to a minimum. Now, depending on the year of your vehicle and again what model it is, your engine's going to mostly look the same, but you might have small differences in the way your intake piping looks or the throttle body and the hoses. But the PCV valve and its location are the same. What you want to look for is this hose right here with the foam around it. Here's your engine. Here's a wider angle view. Slowly going to zoom in so that you can see where it is. This right here, you'll see a hose with a clamp on the top side. You won't be able to see the bottom side because of this foam insulation, but the bottom side ends about right here, at which point it connects to the little nipple on the PCV valve. First thing you want to do is remove this foam. This foam goes all the way underneath there and also surrounds the PCV valve. There's not an easy way to do it. What you want to do, I'm gonna have to do it with 2 hands, but grab as far down as you can here. Make sure the engine's cool so you're not burning yourself, and gently pry up there and pry up on this side until it comes up. You're gonna end up tearing the foam somewhere around this area where I'm pointing to with my finger, but you'll be able to get the top half of it off and the bottom half will remain in there. Here it is, removed. As you can see, I tore it a little bit, no big deal. It'll still go back in. This piece is all intact, and where it tore is right here, which goes right there. Now, with that out of the way, we can see where the bottom end of this hose terminates, You can see the clamp right there, and this connects to the top of the PCV valve. Now, the next thing I need to do is undo this clamp, slide it down off the hose, and pull this end of the hose off of that nipple. To get to that clamp, I'm going to use some basic needle nose pliers. You can use whatever you have handy. You want to grab the clamp, wiggle it around a little bit, and gently pull it towards you. There we go. So that the end of that hose is no longer being clamped down. Grab it with your hand, gently pull back. Now we need to get that clamp off of the bottom. You can see it. Let me point to it with the screwdriver right there. You can see it. So I'm gonna get, well, you know what? Let's see if that'll just pull off. I bet you if I just wiggle this and pull upwards, yeah, there we go. Because it's not a fit that's being held under pressure or anything. So that's off. And there is our PCV valve. You can see that there's a hex portion to it that you can put a socket on. That should be a 22 millimeter deep socket. So go grab yourself a 22 millimeter deep socket, a ratchet, and an extension, which hopefully you have in your toolbox. If you don't, go grab them, because those are useful hand tools to have around. Got my ratchet, my deep socket, and I love these little wobble extensions. If you notice, the end of that extension allows the socket to wobble. Super useful in tight spots, so you can get a nice flat fit on your bolt without your extension actually having to be flat against the socket. I'll put the link in the description. I love these things if you want to grab yourself a set. So let's get that on to our lovely PCV valve. Right about there. Let me break it loose. There we go. Not tight at all. And also, when you're putting the new one back on, don't over tighten it, because these PCV valves are plastic and they will break if you over tighten them. Got that loose. I'm gonna reach down in here and grab it. There we go. This is the original one. I'm just shaking it. I hear the ball moving in there, or the little valve. I'm gonna blow in it. It is working. One side is allowing air through, the other side is not allowing air through. But I do hear some dirt or buildup or something in there. It's not moving as freely as the new one is. So anyway, it's letting air through, but it's not working perfectly like a brand new one. Now we've got our new one. Make sure it looks the same dimensions. There's always a chance that the wrong one ended up in the wrong parts bag, even if the part number on the bag was the same. So grab your new one, take a peek down there, make sure nothing's fallen in or on the threads. If it has, fish it out, use your finger, use needle nose pliers, use a little tiny nozzle and a vacuum, and make sure you get all the gunk out. Nothing in there, it's all clean. So I'm gonna take my new one, get the threads started, just so that I'm not trying to start the threads with my giant socket in that tight space. And then after the threads have started by hand, then I'm gonna put my socket, my extension, my ratchet on there and tighten it until it's just barely snug. I've got it started. Now I'm using my ratchet to tighten it the rest of the way. And once we get to where it's just barely starting to tighten up, I'll slow down, make sure that my socket is flat as can be on the PCV valve. That way it's not on there in any sort of angled way that might risk breaking the nipple off the end of it. And I'm just going real slow, feeling it out until I feel it bottom out, and then I'll go about another half turn. There we go. Now it's bottomed out. Well, maybe not even a half turn. So right now it's bottomed out. I'm gonna go about another, let's see, what'd that get me? About a quarter turn. So that is plenty tight. There's our new PCV valve. Let me get the hoses on. We'll put this stuff back together. This hose is still squishy. It's not too hard. You can see I can still squish it. If your hose is rock hard, go grab a new hose as well. I'll put the part numbers for the PCV valve the hose and the 2 clamps all in the description, so that if you need any of those parts, you've got the part numbers and the links handy and ready to go. So I just pushed that bottom piece on, went on just fine. Clamp is in the place it should be, if you can see it right there. Can you see it? Yep. Now this top one I'm going to slide on, and then I'm going to use my needle nose pliers to wiggle this clamp back on. Now that that's on, I'm going to take my foam, and whether you have 30,000 miles or 100,000 miles on your truck, these foam things are more and more brittle over the years. So just be gentle with it. Try to put it back in. If it just crumbles and falls apart on you as you're taking it out or putting it back in, don't worry. I've had these come completely apart, and it's not the end of the world if the foam doesn't go back in. But I got that back in. Now what's the next step? Do you remember? Do you remember? All right, next step, we gotta put the engine cover back on. There's a few points where it clips back on. It may be different on your engine. On this particular one, it's right here, right there, right there. And then you also wanna make sure that the oil cap is centering in that hole. And then it also sort of slings over those points right there. I've got it laying upside down here so I can show you where it attaches. So this right here goes on to one of those little spots right there. This goes right here. This one here goes on that. And then these 2 slots right here and right here, you imagine this flipped upside down, they kind of straddle right around that spot and that spot. So what you want to do is flip this over, and first you want to slide it onto those 2 points so that it locates itself correctly, and then gently lower it down. Make sure you're centering the oil cap through this hole, and just peek underneath it, whatever you can see, whether you can see this one, this stud, or this one. Make sure it's lining up correctly, and then gently push down on it. Don't smack down on it, because if it's not lined up, it'll end up breaking something. All right, guys, you're welcome, because this is not a comfortable position to be in. But I've got it lined up, and if you can see, those 2 little U-shaped sections are on that bar, on those 2 plastic pieces. And I'm gently going to lower this down, and we've got our oil cap centered. I'm gonna push down right here. There we go. Push down right here. All right, and right here. Then do a little tug test, make sure it's attached everywhere, and that's it. So that engine cover's on. I'm gonna put this front cowl cover on, put the clips back in, and then we'll be done. Now that I've got that front cover on, all my clips are right here. If you've never used these clips, here's the reassembly instructions. You put your finger at the bottom. Let me do that again. So you've got the stub sticking out the bottom. You push it up, and when it's in the up position, the clip is disengaged and it's not holding anything. Then you put it back in your hole, push the clip down. Whoop, that didn't work. Let's try this again. There we go. Let's try a different clip. I think the other one might have the tabs broken off. Yep. So there's the little tabs there. You want to squish them back in like so. Get them to come together a little bit. Wiggle it around. Get it into the hole until it's flush down there at the bottom, at the flange. Then push down. Don't push down past the lip of the flange, just to there. And then that clip is engaged and in place. Here, I'll do another one here. So you take the top out. You squish these together. You wiggle your way in. Take your time. Don't shove it in there. Haha, that's what she said, right? Then push here. That's it. So let me get the rest of these in. Those clips are all back in. We're set. 2 of them had some little broken tabs at the bottom, so I'm going to grab some out of the garage. I have a bunch of spares to make sure all of the holes have clips in them. Not totally necessary. If you break one, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. I just like to make sure that they're all in place. I will also put the part number and a link down in the description below. Actually, it's not a part number. The Toyota ones are a little expensive, so I just buy the box of the aftermarket little clips on Amazon. A lot more inexpensive, and you get more of them for the same amount of money. So I'll put the link down in the description for those as well. Anyway, that's it. Now we've got the new PCV valve in place and back to healthy status, and it's part of our maintenance that we're going to continue doing every 30,000 miles. And for some of you guys, that's every 2 oil changes, 3 oil changes, whatever your oil change interval is. Just make a note for yourself to replace the PCV valve as well at that 30,000, 36,000 mile mark to keep everything running healthy and working well. In the meantime, I hope you found this video helpful. Make sure to hit that subscribe button down below to support the channel. Hit the thumbs up. And if you want to be notified when I upload new videos, hit that little bell icon next to the subscribe button, and you'll get a YouTube notification whenever I upload a new video. God bless you guys. I hope you enjoyed this. Love y'all. I will see you next time.